The Say Something podcast is brought to you by amomentwithmorris.com and blackblueprints.com. That's blackblueprints with a Z.com. Here with the newest installment, the newest episode of the Say Something podcast. I'm Jermaine Morris with the one and only Mr. Barry Accius.
Yes, people, I'm in the building.
In the building for sure. Episode 20.
I told you we coming for that 40 spot.
Put a dub on it. Episode 20, the Say Something podcast, where we get together and talk about everything happening out in this world, in this life, in these streets. Stuff that not only we as in me and Barry, but we as in everybody should be saying something about.
Say something, say something, say something.
Getting together every week, bringing it to your dome piece. What's going on with you, Barry?
Oh, man, you know, one of the real ones came home. One of my boys did a 12-year stretch. Just got back home.
Man.
Yeah. Held it down, you know. It was crazy. He went in. We were still doing what we do. He comes out. It's just like totally different.
12 years will definitely change you.
Yeah, definitely changed. You know, he's in a good space. Held his head. I look at it like if you're going to be in that life, understand there are consequences, right?
Definitely.
So, with that being said, when he got into the shit that he got into,
yeah,
he held his head.
Okay.
I'm not condoning behavior like that because I feel there is only one way to deal with it. I mean, there's a few ways, but you know the definite transactions of the lifestyle.
Yeah.
Death, jail.
There's no happy ending on that.
Nah. But as a guy that lives it and really brings it, when he could have, he didn't, and he held his head.
I think what's interesting is not only when, if you talk about somebody going away doing that much time, how that changes them, but how the world changes when they get out. Like, if you think about it in this society right now, technology quadruples like every 18 months.
Yes, sir.
So if we think about, say, go back what life was 4 years ago, or if you go back 7 years ago. 7 years ago, there was no Snapchat, there was no Instagram, there was no, half the social media platforms that are day-to-day use now, non-existent.
Say something.
So if you talking about 12, so if you imagine 12, 2007, 2005, MySpace generation.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Everything that has changed in that time period.
Yes.
And I think that a lot of times, we get caught up in just the day-to-day life and moving that we're not aware of, what's really happening around us. Kind of like when you're kids, you don't notice how big they get. But when somebody else sees them like, oh, man, he's grown so big. Then you kind of look at him like, oh, man, I guess he is tall now.
And then the fact that, he got to miss all those opportunities to watch his kids grow.
Yeah.
The fact that he, didn't have the ability just to walk outside, drive a car, like those little things, right? Go, like now, walking to the park and looking at the flowers, you're going to appreciate and value a lot more.
Yeah.
So I just think that when it's all said and done, what he told me is if it wasn't me taking care of myself, that prison system that they've set up that claims they're supposed to rehabilitate, it doesn't do any of that. Yeah.
Well, also something that's important. So there's that misnomer, that prison is about rehabilitation.
Oh, that's a joke.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. In case you're unaware, prison was never designed to rehabilitate.
Nah.
Never.
It's a money-making system.
Yeah, well, I mean, even at its early inception, prison was simply designed to just to keep you away. So like the old days, like go back old civilizations, they didn't have prisons.
Yeah.
You were either dealt with on the spot, like if you stole something, they cut off your hand. If you kill somebody, eye for an eye, the family of whomever you killed had the right to kill you. They also used to do something called exiling, where we ain't messing with you no more. I don't care what you do, you just can't ever do it here. Like prison wasn't like a thing really. Prison, they had islands for prison, like the Alcatraz thing in San Francisco. So Australia was a prison colony. Sicily was a penal colony. Like these were places they put folks on islands and then just sailed off into the sunset. Say y'all figure it out amongst yourselves.
And now they are using people as slaves.
Yes,
modern day slavery. And in a simple fact, when you look at everything that goes on in prisons, you look at those many individuals that are on death row.
Yeah.
They don't really kill them. I mean, they keep them on for so long, and we can go back and forth about the death penalty.
Yeah.
Is it right? Is it wrong? My whole thing is, what's the purpose if you're not giving that person an opportunity to come out? The person's never going to get paroled. You know, the person has been given that life.
Yeah.
For whatever heinous act. What is the purpose of keeping that person alive? The purpose is because you need to make sure that person produces.
That and also I think where you find a lot of people who are against the death penalty is because they just had, I mean, in the past 3 weeks, I think there was 2 or 3 people who got released from multiple year sentences that DNA evidence proved that they were in there unjustly. So you have a lot of people who are against the death penalty because the system, the judicial system, the way it currently exists, is so flawed and corrupt in so many areas that you've got a lot of people who are in jail who shouldn't be there. So the delay for the death penalty is because we know there's a whole lot of shady stuff in the process that gets you from picked up on the street to in that jump street in prison.
Yes, sir.
So we're fighting the death penalty because we know there's a bunch of people who shouldn't even be in there in the first place and damn sure shouldn't be executed.
I don't. That you can make that argument, but I don't really believe that's why people are fighting the death penalty because of that.
No, there's a percentage. There's a good campaign on that.
I don't agree. I think just people they get in the way of just looking at things and it's inhumane, and I don't believe that people.
That's a factor too.
I mean, I feel like that's more a factor than that. Though I understand what you're saying, but systematically, this whole thing is flawed. You know, this whole thing is backwards automatically when you look at how the prison system creates the environment. Like, how does inmate get cell phones? How are there more contraband, more drugs, you know, in these prisons sometimes than there is on the streets? Like, how do I have all this access to all of this stuff that you've locked me up for in prison?
Yeah.
Like, to me, when you look at that on a wider lens, a wider scope, you have to ask yourself, like, wait a minute. He has a point there. How in the hell is my partner texting me about the game like he's next door when he's supposed to be locked up?
Yeah, they got inmates who've released music videos.
Like, real talk.
Beating on I'm not even joking. Like, they're beating on the walls and getting the beat. Homies on the beatbox, and they dropping 16s.
So,
and they're releasing videos from cell phone camera footage.
And I'm not knocking the inmates' hustle. I mean, do what you feel.
Yeah.
But again, it's not up to the inmates. It's up to those people that are controlling the prison.
Exactly.
Because if you make it hard for me to get mail, if you make it hard for me to mail out mail, if you make it hard for me for my visits and everything else in between, how is it that in so many of these cases you hear all of the drug abuse, all of the violence, all of the illegal activity, all of the shot callers making calls to take care of street business? How do you have all these relationships between officers and inmates? I've heard some crazy stories, like in one story in New York that the officer had a relationship with the inmate and got pregnant. It's just like, how is all these things happening if this is supposed to be a facility to lock down, to create the correction of the behavior they came in there for?
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. They have a lot of... So first off, if you take male COs, correctional officers, in female prisons, there's a lot of cases where these of rape and sexual assault happen on the regular. The ones that normally make papers, make headlines, are the female COs who get in relationship with male inmates. So the females in the business aren't as protected. And then you have women who've come up pregnant. You've got women who get into issues. But when it comes to the male COs, they're doing dirt. The gambling rings, the drugs. You're 100% correct that you have people who go to jail on theft and become drug addicts.
Yeah.
Like, they're in there for stealing. They didn't even touch drugs.
How is it that my partner is talking to me that he was smoking weed.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, huh? He wasn't even a weed smoker before. Yeah. But he's telling me, yo, yeah, I was smoking. Like, well, how? What? And then if you were smoking, well, we know that leaves a lasting smell for a little bit.
Yeah.
So they didn't smell anything?
Folks looking the other way. Same reason what organized hits, all kind of stuff that go on in prison.
So that's why I can never buy in to any system that's been created essentially by corruption.
Yeah.
You know, they capitalize on the bodies. Now, does that say we need to end prisons? No. Do people need to go to jail? For sure. Do people need to be locked up? For sure. But at the same time, I shouldn't be going to any jail, prison, wherever, to do and be the same exact person I was when I was out there.
Or because worse version.
Or even a worse version, because there's really no rules that really apply. It's just depending on the officer of the day, how the prison works, that you have all these different cases where literally you have so much corruption, you can't expect these people to be rehabilitated and come out and being something different. And you can't expect people like myself and others who look at this system and believe that this system is righteous is a freaking joke. I just like it. It boggles my mind. The first time I ever found out one of my homeboys who was in there had a cell phone.
Yeah, I mean, so going across the board, how crazy it is. So you remember the first Matrix movie? For the folks out there, I was
classic.
Yeah, so I was liking that. So you had Morpheus who was trying to explain the Matrix to Neo the first time.
Yeah.
And so as he's breaking it down, he gave the history of what happened in the war and all that. He said, but at the end of the day, the big picture was that the Matrix was machines who turned a human being into a battery as means to an end. That's what the prison industrial complex is. It takes a human being and turns them into a battery. The battery to power the big picture machine. Like prison inmates population drastically soared at the end of slavery because they realized to make back the money that was lost in slave labor, they made up for it in prison labor.
Can you repeat that so people can understand that?
So at the end of slavery, so when it was done, you got to understand that financially there's no greater come up than free labor. So if you're not paying all these people, you're maximizing the most work that they can physically do in a 24-hour time period, and you don't have to pay, you're making money hand over fist. So when slavery ended, a lot of states the nation took a financial dip. Like states that their claim to fame, they made their money because of slave labor, now all of a sudden didn't have it. So they had to make up that money somewhere. So the way that they offset that was through prison labor.
Yep.
So you get an inmate, once you become arrested, once you get a felony, you lose your rights. And so when you get an inmate in there and you put them back in the old days, they had them on the chain gang.
Yep.
Laying railroad from coast to coast, instead of trying to pay somebody on the street to do that job. No, we're going to get these inmates out there and they're going to be hammering spikes till the sun goes down.
They're forced to do it.
So, yes. And so they reinstated, they got the free labor out of inmates. So after slavery ended, they had all these coded laws that made it against the law to be black doing anything. So you had, like down the South, they had people who were, black people were escaping on the railroad. It became against the law to be standing by the railroad tracks if you were black. Like just standing near the track became instant. They locked you up. And once they got you in prison, they got the free labor out of you. So this was something that happened in the late 1800s. The only thing was that only the names have changed. The game remains the same. It is the same practice now as it was then. They get a bunch of nonviolent drug offenders in prison, tack on mandatory minimum sentences. So we got you in here for years. Yeah. And then you can either sit in a little box for 23 hours out the day, or you can come work these shops, press this metal, sew these buttons, do whatever for the day, earn you some little pennies. And we get the jobs from these big corporations, and we're going to pimp you that way.
And then you ask, why do prisoners have some of the best medical care than people that are out here working, paying taxes? Why do you think?
Yeah.
It's just like going back in the days of the enslavement of our people. what am I going to do with a sick, diseased man or woman that can't really work, that I'm going to have to take care of, besides them trying to take care of me? Like, I have to make sure they are healthy enough to do the work that needs to be done.
Profit sharing. The reason why they get that's their benefit. And here's just something real quick, because this is a conversation I had this week, and I had to draw some light to it. There's this misconception that all this stuff that happened, all the bigotry, all the slavery, all that stuff was a Southern thing. That this is what existed
across the board.
Yeah. So when people are like, no, that was just those states in the South, and it wasn't the nation, and it was this, that, and just so
it was the nation.
It was, and this is why it's such a big thing.
It was the forefathers. I'm just gotta be this. I gotta say, no. It was the forefathers.
And so, and to get this into perspective, so the only reason why slavery wasn't as big in the North as it was in the South is climate. So this just for take this with you if you hear this. In the North, the way that it gets so much colder, most people in the North who had slaves couldn't have more than two, just from the size of where the land was and what they could afford. So most slaves, they had one or two that was in a separate home as opposed to where the slave masters lived. It's so much colder up north that you couldn't have 15, 20, 25 slaves on a plantation because you had nowhere to house them. So Northerners had 2 slaves, whereas Southerners had 12. Because you can put them outside in a little cabin because it's so much warmer most of the year. Yeah. It wasn't that's it. That's why the Southern was coming up, because I had 12 to your 2 and I'm making my money down south, and that's how the game changed. But the fact is that the Northern had the same mentality, they just weren't getting paid. Yeah. So when the prison industrial complex came state to state, that was a game that they could play. We can build our prisons now the same as y'all build them down south. Yeah. And it doesn't matter about climate then. So they got in the game that they were boxed out of due to geography. And that's why it's been a nationwide issue when it comes to the preschool to prison pipeline.
And it's going to continue to be a nationwide issue. It's going to continue to be something that we have to look at as a people. Is this what we want to be looked at as a country that jails people at an alarming rate?
No nation on the face of the earth incarcerates more of its people than the United States of America. Like, and we're not. That would be different if we were, say, China, that's got 1 billion people. Take that into consideration. The United States, roughly 350 million Americans, versus China, that's got 1 billion people, and we have more of our people in prison than they have in theirs.
And you know the number with blacks and Latinos.
Yeah, we lead the league like Russell Westbrook. we triple double it. So what I'm saying, was something that we say something about is, you get those, the miseducation about how things work. Yes, you get the mislabeling of like incarceration and rehabilitation. So when you find it, so I throw the ball to you. You're a parent. So when you see the things that are going on in society, you see the miseducation, not only in schools, but in society as a whole. What do you tell your kid? And I know yours is grown at this point, but we work with a lot of kids and stuff. What do we say something to our children about how coming up in this world, what it's really about?
Survive. Like honestly, it's almost like you gotta break down the rules of survival. And sometimes by being proactive, that is not even a guarantee that your child will make it through the finish line. Yeah. There's so many different things that are attacking your child on an everyday basis. The child has access to more things than we've ever had access to. Yes. Now, fingertips. That's not saying that we didn't have crazy eras. Yeah. The 70s was crazy. The 80s was crazy. The 60s, it was definitely rocking and rolling. Yeah. The 90s was no punk. Yeah. So we've had eras. So youth has been corrupt. Youth has been enraged, engaged for many, many decades.
Yeah, that's just how it goes. Yeah.
Before, you could isolate your child. You could sit there and say, hey, you're not going with Jimmy. You're not hanging out with Tammy. The kid would really have to make it a point to find out how to get down. Literally. Yeah. Yeah. It wasn't just plastered. Yeah. Imagery was very much conducted by the same facilitators, media, radio,
and just
magazines.
depending upon how, not to cut you off, depending upon how old you are, if you were born before 1980, you grew up in an area where there was 5 TV stations.
Yeah. So,
you know what I'm saying? Like just so, because younger folks now, they're used to 400 stations and satellite and this and that. Back in the day, it was 5. Before, if you're a little older, you remember when it was 3.
Yeah, it was Accius. And at the same time, your block was your world.
Yeah.
Your neighborhood was your world. I mean, you knew a few different places, how they moved, how they operated. You had a cousin that lived in California.
Yeah.
I got a cousin that lives in Miami.
But you had no idea.
But you had no ideas what they sold you about what California was. If you lived in California, you knew it wasn't that. But if you lived in New York, you basically thought that's what it was.
Yeah.
Right? So, in content, you did not know as much as you know.
Yeah.
Now, there's so much access.
You can know anything.
Now it's a click away.
Yeah.
I'll go on my phone, as I call it, the weapons of mass destruction, and at my fingertips is everything my parents are trying to hide.
Yeah.
Everything that my parents don't want me to see right now.
I can see it on YouTube.
Yes, everything that my friend tweeted me about, I can go ahead now, I can figure this out and pull it. And I don't even need anyone to guide me, right?
Yeah.
Because even in a sense, when you're on watching the big thing when we were coming up was cable. It was cable TV. You still had to kind of find what was the channel, like guide me here. Where is this? Now
trying to hit the button and get the rambled video that you ain't supposed to be watching.
You're not going to get a cell phone and pick it up and type something and someone's going to block you.
Yeah.
It's going to go right to the source.
And for parents, it's even, you get these kids that they'll hear a term that they don't know. There's even the Urban Dictionary.
Yeah.
So even if it's not the technical, clinical Webster's version, you can find out what anything means.
Yeah, exactly. So in a sense of, I tell my youngin, survive and try to be as original as possible. Like, there's not anything over the top that I see now that's really original. People try, but I think they're all copycats of something else. And some of this shit is just weird. I can't even sit there and deny and make it seem like, oh yeah, that is new and oh, I'm into it. Some of the shit is weird, and then some people are staying complacent. And I don't think us as adults, we do enough to tell a child at a certain age, you know what? You don't need to have a cell phone with all those gadgets. I'll give you a cell phone, but check this out.
Phone.
Here's your flip.
that
like,
makes phone calls.
You don't need a child to have all that access. But at the same time, you also want to be aware of what your child is having the access to. But nowadays, I feel like in this stage and this age of how a parent should operate, you need to be more hands-on in your approach on discussing numerous things that your child is constantly being influenced by, constantly being exposed to, and definitely will ask the question about. Before they ask, you're already telling them. Yeah. Because curiosity killed the cat, but curiosity led us into all these different places. And with us being curious and having that young, oh, well, he was young, he didn't know. Nowadays, you know too much to say that, oh, I didn't know.
Okay, so when you talking about, keeping these kids informed about what's going on and opening the dialogue. So when we're talking about, so saying something to these kids, because, the old days it was, the wrong side of the tracks or that side of town or don't hang out with those people or that sort of thing. But when we talk to kids now, so if you're putting, your son or your daughter and you're sitting them down on the couch with all the crazy stuff going on, you get like the story of Jordan Edwards. And if you haven't heard about that yet, Jordan Edwards, 15-year-old, honor roll student athlete, parents' dream for a kid. Like he walked a straight and narrow, like he was doing a DUI checkpoint test. Like he was just heel to toe. He was straight edge. And he went to a house party with his friends, and his parents have done a good job in letting him know, like I said, he's right on the school books. Everybody just loved him and raved about him. So he gets to the house party, and it doesn't seem like it's quite on the up and up. Like there's some stuff that's going on that he doesn't like, that doesn't feel right to him. So he's like, hey, posse out. We got to go. And so he gets into the car with his friends, and the police were called because of a neighbor said, it's a disruptive house, whatever. The police showed up for the same reason why he wanted to leave. And as the car is pulling away for the kids to go home, to get away from that environment, one of the police officers opened fire on the car. And the original story was that the officer said that the car backed up towards him aggressively.
Of course.
The report came back today after for once body cam footage actually worked. Yeah. And so that officer was fired because he said the car was actually driving away. Like the kids in the car said, we were driving to go home. And Jordan Edwards was shot in the back and killed. The bullet went through the car, through the back, and he died that day. And so when you're telling the kids about, being good in school and just being a good kid and walk the straight and narrow when you should be okay, then you see stories about when kids do just that and tragedy still strikes them. Like, what do you sit down and say something to your kids about?
Being black is having a target on your back. When you see this kind of behavior, and now what we hear is the officers got fired, or one of the officers
the officer who pulled the trigger, he got fired. And so they're also looking to investigate as a homicide.
Now, clearly, we know in principle, because this is not the first time that they've automatically fired an officer of recent. That is clearly because of all of the outrage and all of the protesting and all of the fury that the people have given for all of the heinous acts of police terror as the henchmen walk through clearly having a target on black folks and killing them, whether it be old, young, woman, child, man, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
They do what they do. If they feel it's black, mental illness, they don't care. They're going to do the cover up. So you have a situation to where that's odd. This sounds familiar. Doesn't it sound like Mike Brown? Doesn't it sound like Tamir Rice? I mean, doesn't it sound like all these other shootings before? And when you sit there and say, okay, well, they're trying to work the angle because they did the firing, I still have to ask myself, what in the world were you thinking? And that's why you go into this and say this is all about race. Because how is a thoughtful, a thinking, a person that's supposed to protect and serve police officer, I call them henchmen, pull the trigger on a car that's going away from the scene, trying to leave, but then say to protect their own ass, they were driving aggressively. That's the reason why we're so frustrated. That's the reason why we don't look at this system as a system that is for us. This is a system that is against us, designed to defeat us. That's why we call them slave catchers. That's why we call them henchmen. That's why we have no trust in the police. Because as soon as the situation goes down, you have a police officer, a henchman, covering his tracks.
Yeah, they circle the wagons around.
It's just like any other story. And the funny part is, this is the same Dallas, because this happened in Dallas, right?
Not 100% sure.
It happened in Dallas, right? Texas. This is the same place that allegedly had the sniper who was trying to shoot off cops and all that. That's blah.
You got a kid like this, and I think part of it is, so they can't Mike Brown this. And what I mean by that is that you don't get the luxury of he was a criminal.
He's a thug. He stole before.
Yeah. You don't get to say, well, he was illegally selling cigarettes. You don't get to say he was illegally selling CDs in front of the store. You don't get to say he was stopped in a routine traffic stop because he had a broken tail light or failed to signal. You don't get to say, he was irate or disrespectful or didn't comply, or none of those things apply here. None of those things apply here. And when it went to investigating who was the kid, this is the ideal son for any parent anywhere. I mean, helpful, generous, loved by everybody, honor roll student, phenomenal athlete, loved and embraced by the community. Like, this is the squeakiest, cleanest mother effer that you can get as a kid. So at this point, I think that that's a major factor in why you have to first fire. And then they'll probably throw this dude under the bus. And it's not even throwing him under the bus, because he should rightfully be indicted and arrested. I don't
know. I won't go that far, but here's the thing. Had you done all these things ahead of time, had you laid down harsh consequences before, bodies of black youth, men and women, would not still be laying on grounds all throughout America.
Yeah.
Because all it takes is someone saying, we must take some accountability.
Yeah.
We must show that unjust behavior, whether it's a police officer or a citizen, will not be tolerated. Okay. So what you have to do is, because I've been fighting this battle for several years, and when we asked for transparency, we asked for accountability, we asked just for justice in behavior that you can see. It's not like we're lying and making it up.
Yeah. It's
right here in front of you. You know what's going on.
Yeah.
All throughout America, police are corrupt, right? I don't care about the 5 officers that's good at the one precinct. Guess what? The overall agenda of these police officers in this system and this code, this blue sheet code they have, is corruption. If you, and I believe that all you can do in this point is pretty much, they're left with nowhere to go.
Yeah.
That's the only reason why he's fired. This guy's fired.
Yeah.
Because it's like, if he had said, well, you know what, they drove off, we thought we saw a gun or whatever.
Yeah.
I guarantee you there'd be no firing. But it's almost like, dude, you said they were trying to hit you guys.
You gotta. It's very easy to tell the direction that a 2-ton automobile is moving in.
Yes. And then in the same part, they're looking at the scope of what's been going on.
Yeah.
The gig is kind of up. Like, there can't be so many different times where we see someone getting choked out on a video, when we see someone getting body slammed from a desk, when we see someone getting pummeled on a highway, a freeway, that we could keep on saying, well, maybe when you see someone getting shot running in the back, that we can actually say to you, from a kid that has no record, kid has no priors, a black child that is trying to leave and do the right thing, that we can protect. Trust me, they were sitting there looking like, oh my God.
Because when we talk about, so you're saying something too, because I had an idea, like if king for a day, you can do, if you can swift through and change policy or make things better, whatever. The running argument is for why things happen is, well, we need to address training, or we need to retrain our officers to this or that, or we need to this whatever the standard issue that they give. My thing would simply be is, not only are we going to come after the officer who did it, I want to know who his training officer was. Who did he do his ride along with when he started? I want to go back to the academy. Who's the one who taught him, and what was his grades when he was there? So if you're the officer who trained him and you gave him a cosign, you're now on the hot seat. If you're at the academy, you're the one who taught him. If you passed him and said that he or she is a qualified officer to do these things and handle this job, you're right there with him. Hold everybody on that chain of command for that individual officer accountable. It wouldn't take long before you start seeing a policy shift, you start seeing behavioral shift, and you start see things going down differently. Because if I was your training officer 5 years ago and you do something today, and it's because I'm the one who signed off on you. Yeah. Now all of a sudden I'm getting cuffed. I'm in the cuffies, and I'm looking at some indictment and some time because I'm the one that signed off on you. I gave you the pass. Yeah. There'd be serious repercussions real quick. Yeah. I think that it's because they can do this where they can hold one dude out to dry. Look, we can't cover this.
Exactly.
I'm sorry, homie, you got to go.
A culture of non-accountability becomes a culture of chaos.
Yeah.
And that's just what you have. It's a culture of you know, these henchmen believing they are above the law. They can do whatever, whenever, however, to whoever, especially Black and Latino, because nobody cares.
Yeah.
And we can make a good enough story, and someone's going to believe us.
Okay, so we're talking about, like, what do we say to the kid? So this is an issue where, like I said, the kid was on the straight and narrow, and he got shot trying to leave a situation that was getting shaky, getting dicey. And he said, I want to go home. Take me back to my mama and daddy. Like, I'm out. So now as you're talking to the kids, that's that particular case. So that's an opportunity where he was doing the right thing and something tragic happened to him. But now you start going across the board to all the other things that are happening. Take it to the shooting in San Diego. So if you're not familiar, down in the La Jolla complex down in San Diego, California, it was a pool party where if you don't know, if you've never been to the area, this area is a predominantly white area. So in a predominantly white area of the city, in a predominantly white complex, there was a pool party that had several black people who were attending, either lived there or guests of, at this function. Dude comes out and starts shooting only the black people who were there. And specifically to the point to where he shot one black woman. Two friends of the woman, who happened to be Caucasian, wanted to come over and help. He stopped them. He didn't shoot them. He said, leave them alone. Like, don't try to help. There were two white women who were 10 feet away from the shooter. He looked right past them to shoot at black people 20 to 30 feet away. Like, he was very purposeful in who he shot. So he shot and killed one woman, critically injured 7 more, and shot at another individual. So now when you're talking about, this isn't an issue of a 15-year-old, because you can, if you're somebody who's going to say, well, that 15-year-old shouldn't have been at a house party in the first place. I'm just saying, because we know that folks are going to say that. So now we're talking about a complex pool party. This is not folks out here wilding out. This is not, wrong side of town, shady. What do you say to your kids? Like, I know you said survive, but you're like, look, you are black in America.
It's not fair. You're black in America, and they're not going to give you a chance. You're black in America, and unfortunately, being black in America makes you a target. You're black in America, and America is racist. Because again, when you are not being accountable to any of this, there's no accountability. There's no harsh penalties. You don't call it what it is. Is it a mass shooting? Is it a hate crime? What did the media say?
That's the second part to that. They tried on every level to remove this from being a hate crime.
And now, let me stop right there real quick. And now the Fresno shooting of the black guy that killed the 4 people, they made sure that it was labeled and stated as a hate crime. They got quotes from him. We don't know he said it.
Yeah.
That this is what he said. I just wanted to shoot some white people. He said that?
Yeah.
So they made sure, in principle, that was the direct statements of who and what this guy was.
The same way, if you happen to be of Middle Eastern descent, you're a terrorist.
Exactly.
So if you're of Middle Eastern descent, you can't shoot somebody because you're a criminal. You shoot somebody because you're a terrorist. So the thing with the San Diego, not to make light of it, so the whole media down there kept pushing that this is not a hate crime. Did he kill
himself?
He got shot by the police. So they call it suicide by cop. Yes, he's dead. So they kept trying to push it because they said for it to constitute a hate crime, you have to say some form of either slur or sentence specifically derogatory at the group that you were actually, like, you can't make a Hispanic slur and shoot a black person and it be a hate crime. Like, it has to be, it's very specific parameters.
So if he said the N-word, then it would have been considered a hate crime? N-words?
Yes, that would be a hate crime. But had they been Puerto Rican, no. You know what I mean? So they kept trying to slant it that way, though every act of the behavior, every step through, that's exactly what it was. So what I'm saying is that what do we say? Because the next part to look at is a slightly different twist. So you got a 15-year-old, straight and narrow. You can make the argument wrong place, wrong time, that he shouldn't have been there. But you have a trigger-happy cop who shoots him. You have people who are just out enjoying a pool party, just having fun on an afternoon, nothing malice, nothing criminal happening, and their life is lost or tragically altered. But then to the other side of the game, we bring it home. We're here in Sacramento, California, where we had the 18-year-old who happened to be a black individual who sexually assaulted and murdered a 61-year-old and an 86-year-old woman who were out on the track.
He killed the 86-year-old.
Killed the 86-year-old. Sexually assaulted both of them, but killed the 86-year-old.
Why you want to sexually assault an elderly person?
I have no idea. I'm sure at some point
that's mental illness.
I'm sure they'll as they sift this through. So I'm saying, so when we're talking about, so it's not one thing where you can tell kids.
And this was in the morning.
Yeah. So you can't tell kids. It's one thing to tell kids like, watch out for police officers because you can be targeted, you can be stereotyped, you can be all these different things. But then also, this kid is 18. And these are in the morning, the elderly folks out there getting they Tai Chi, getting their walk on, getting their power walk on. These are two older ladies who are out getting some exercise, and this 18-year-old comes out, sexually assaults them. So we're talking to kids, it can be anybody.
Yeah, it's the sickness, man. This world is, and like I said, I think too much exposure, too much trauma, and nobody's dealing with anything. I mean, this kid, and I am not making any excuses for the behavior.
Yeah.
But where did we go wrong with this child, for this child to be like, yo, I'm going to go ahead in the middle of a high school freaking track in the morning, I'm going to attack some elderly.
Stalk them, and like he was posted up.
Like, who else has he done this with?
Yeah.
Who are the victims?
That is extremely
calculated,
aggressive, which means I wouldn't be surprised.
Sinister.
I wouldn't be surprised when you start really digging that there's somebody else he done. There's somebody else he touched. There's something else because you don't escalate.
Or he's been touched.
I'm saying that's when you dig even further back because you don't escalate that quick to two people in broad daylight like that quick. So I'm sure that there's elderly. I'm sure there's going to be some more stories that come up.
So I'm hoping that, this is exactly the person that did it, because sometimes it could be like, oh, well, got the wrong person. But I'm pretty sure that they know it's the person.
They got the DNA.
Okay. So all that's corrected and all that's official. Again, the sickness of this world and the behavior of this world creates and even condones behavior like this, where people are walking around thinking that's okay. It's normalized.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, see some older people, don't got respect for what's going on and who they are. That's somebody's grandmother.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go assault.
Listen to the president, grab him by the...
Tell you, it's just too much. It's too much outlawish behavior. Even though, again, we went back, go down to our Back to the Future car and
hop in the DeLorean.
Yeah, go in there and see that we have always been on a scale of having some ultra tragic things and just some things that make you shake your head. But now it seems like, because we have so much access to hear of these stories multiple times in different areas, some you just say that there's no way that could happen. But it's like, it's reality, it's true. I think it's because we have so much access, it makes it even more critical, more crucial, and more unfortunate, because you really want to believe that people in their hearts and their minds have more rational thinking mechanisms to do certain things like this.
Okay, so all these things that are going on that, you have to make people aware. Like, you got to tell, the old days, it used to be the boogeyman was, the old neighborhood watch sign, the guy with the hat and the trench coat lurking in the shadows. It was that creepy old guy in the all white van with the blacked out windows. You could label those people.
You could be like,
I'm saying, you knew who the shifty looking dude was.
Now you have no fucking idea.
So now as we talk about, it could be the guy, grandma's not safe going out for early morning exercise.
Yeah.
That, the kid's not safe going to an end of the school year party, and just hanging out with friends. That you can't go to your buddy's apartment complex or your own apartment complex and just hang out in the pool and use the community grill and just have a Saturday. You know what I'm saying? So what is I guess, the silver lining? What is the rainbow? What is the upswing? What do we tell kids that they don't just curl up in the corner and just afraid to come outside?
But I don't even think it's just kids.
But
I think it's overall, it's everybody. Because when you look at these different things to roll out, everyone is getting attacked on every side. And then when you look at some of the people, some of these people that are doing some of the attacking are people that are being paid by our tax dollars that are supposed to protect and serve.
Yeah.
So try to survive, but understand that we're living in a world full of people that are in fear. When people are in fear, and we're not even talking about just people that are getting victimized, we're talking about people that are doing it, right? Some of the predators that's out there creating the crimes. I look at it like there's such this fear, this lack of respect, that individuals will do anything to make someone feel their pain or anything to gain some notoriety or some attention.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like, what can you say to them? What can you say to a child? What can you say to an adult? All you can say is watch yourself. Be careful. But we walk out here doing our podcast on a very late night. It could be our moment.
Yeah.
There's a lot of weird people when we walk out of here.
Yeah.
That something can happen, Yeah.
And
we don't know what kind of hype that person's on. It's just, what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to tell them, hey, try to stay in the house as much as you can. Don't live life.
That's what I'm saying.
Are we supposed to say that? Is that how we're supposed to live? No. You know what you should do? Go to work, try to get a job real close to your house so you don't have to go that far. But God damn it, wait a minute. You're going to work where? The post office. People go postal.
Yeah.
It's like,
because it's
you
hard.
You can't eat the food.
You can't eat the food. You can't drink the water. You can't breathe the air.
You can't have sex because you don't. It's just crazy.
I'm saying we've gotten to a place and a position in this.
Everything is dangerous, man.
It is. So I'm saying, so what do we say to push forward?
You can't. What do you say?
No, I'm saying this for real because there's a lot of people who are very discouraged. There's a lot of people who it's like, I'm afraid to take my kid to school. I'm afraid every time I leave the house. There are people who say, I'm afraid to even bring children into this world.
Survive, but you still must live life. If you want to bring children, look at who you're bringing the children with.
Oh, okay.
Pay attention to that. That be, first of all, before society and the world is going to destroy your child, you cannot have a chance by the mixture of the different parents that are co-opting in this bringing of life, so to speak, right? So let's start there. Okay, I was teaching my kids today.
Let's stay there. I'm saying before we move on, let's stay there because I think that's important in the sense of saying something too. If what we're looking at in this world, all the behavior, all the crazy stuff that's happening, what about saying something to some of these procreation tactics that are going on out here? These folks that are getting together having babies with folks they don't really know.
They shouldn't have it. They shouldn't. And like I was teaching my youth at a foster care program today, I was like, you got to focus on some of your decisions that are going to create your options, create your choices, and what happens to the person. Why is that person in that moment? Well, it's because they're on dope. Did they make a decision to do the dope? Yeah. Well, it's based on the decision. It's not because of the dope.
Yeah.
You made that decision to go ahead and say, hey, I'm going to go ahead and take this opportunity. I'm going to get high.
Yeah.
You never know what that's going to be. That first hit could be that hit you're looking for the rest of your life. So now when you're looking at, I feel like the scope of things, when you have to decide and you choose, one thing I always tell the child, ask yourself, can I deal with this person for the rest of my life?
Yeah.
And of course, because a lot of these situations are so new, or you believe that this person, because you know them for a few years, that they'll never be able to act differently because they have a great character. You don't even know yourself right now.
Yeah.
And a whole lot of things change when you turn 21, 25. Things are not going to be the same. What kind of
who you were at 17 and who you are 24, two completely different.
What kind of career path do you guys have? What kind of work ethic do you guys have? Look at the background of the parents that he or she had. Yeah. Look at that scope. There's so many different things that you got to look at genetically, right, as well, to prepare yourself to make the right decision, and then ask yourself, are you really prepared to be a father and a mother at 18 or 19 when you have to understand that you are solely responsible for this person at some of the most crucial and funnest times of your life, your 20s, you have to be a parent.
Yeah.
That means
Party stops.
Oh, it's supposed to. That means you're going to have to play catch up. If you can balance it out, you're good. But most of the times, people don't know how to balance that out.
Because I think that the reason why I bring that up is because we have a lot of people.
So I'm for abortions.
Okay.
No disrespect.
I
know Tommy got fired for her shots
pro-choice.
Shouts out to Miss Tommy. She ain't found a job yet, huh?
No. Oh, she got legal stuff to where I don't think she can.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but in any event, go ahead.
I'm just saying, because I believe that not everyone's going to be LeBron James. There's going to be a few Jeffrey Dahmers. And I honestly think that a lot of the times men like to jump on the boat, get to sailing, and leave the mothers kind of stuck. I'm not saying it happens all the time, because I raised my daughter, so I understand that women can do it too. I'm a part of that section. Shouts out to my daughter's mom. We good, but she knows the truth, right? Entail of looking at it on a bigger scope, you have to ask yourself, why would you want to create when you still haven't created for your own self, your own path? What makes you believe that you could create a better path for someone else when you haven't even tried for yourself?
Okay, because I think that I agree with you. And I think that that's very important, because we look at the different things that are going on in society.
So have abortions if you have to, okay?
And don't be afraid of a condom.
Listen. Nah, seriously. Because condoms, abortions, I hope no one is, oh my God. Yeah. I just look at all these kids running around here wild bucking.
Yeah.
No. Well, seriously. Oh, I have had abortions before. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. But guess what? It was right for me.
Yeah.
Because I'm better with the one child. I have multiple different kids that I have adopted. That have been a blessing, and I love them to death. I love all my shots out to all my kids when they listen. Daddy loves you. But at the same time, to knowing that financially I would have been obligated from 0 all the way up. Because, listen, it's fun when it's 0, 1, 2, 3, acute, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then you want to get to the teenage years?
9, 10,
listen,
11, 12, 13,
forget
14,
about the money
15.
aspect.
Yeah.
The mental aspect of having you to make sure you're on your A game.
Yeah.
And as we're talking about, well, what do you say to these kids? How you have to ask yourself, what am I going to say to my child when my shit's not together and they looking like, damn, I got to be the breadwinner of the crib?
Because why I asked the question about the mates, and you actually framed this perfectly, because we have a lot of people who are like, man, what do I tell my kids? Like, that's a real question that I hear about, all the things going on and all the fears and worries and stuff that they have. The first thing that I started to think of is, how straight are you? You know what I mean? Yeah. Like for real. Like how straight are you? If you worried about, man, there's all these diseases out here, there's crime, there's this, that, and the third that's happening. Granted, there's going to be some situations that you just have no control over, that just were unforeseen incidents, like the San Diego shooting. That's not a question of if you were doing right by your children or not. And grandma should be able to walk the track in the morning and get her exercise in. But when it comes to, the type of environment you bring the kids into and what they're exposed to and what they can kind of look to, and I ask kids as opposed to adults, like just because this next generation coming up, how straight are you? Like how together are you? Because I see people who have babies with people they don't even know.
Yeah. Or even better, one of the kids we had at one of our youth programs this past Sunday. Shouts out to all the Queens of Team U. We had a great youth empowerment program for our young girls called Love Thyself. One of the girls was like, I don't like school.
Yeah.
So you don't like school. So you're already not focused, and you're 15. Like, I don't like school. I want to be a rapper. Okay, you want to be a trap queen. Cool.
Yeah.
Now, and I'm not wishing bad on the girl, but the likeliness for her to get trapped and literally trapped in a situation, if you don't like school, you going to tell me you going to do better by taking care of a child, but you can't deal with school. But you can deal, like, that's what
you can't deal with 6.5 hours, but you think you'll be able to do it the next 18 years.
This is some of the most craziest things if you think about it. These kids are having kids, but can't even handle dealing with the daily routines of working with themselves, going to school, going to a job, dealing with society, being correct in their manner, but they're going to try to be a parent. Like, that shit to me is crazy. You can't even sit in a classroom. You're jumping out the seat every 2 minutes. But now you're going to say you're going to have the time, the patience, the love,
compassion, and
understanding, and the support,
the wherewithal,
and the know-how to take care of this child, to build this child. See,
you quit on first period French.
Listen, what children lack nowadays is foundation.
There we go.
My father, regardless of us having our tit for tat, that dude was a man that I always respected, even though I disrespected because I was just a young, wild juvenile, and didn't know that what he was saying was trying to protect me. More or less what he was saying to me at the time was like, you're not trying to let me live, because all my friends was living. But guess what? Find out my friends didn't have a father. So they didn't have a structure. So when we talk about foundation, what my dad did for the example created the man I am today. Because regardless of how I moved to the other side of the track, right, I was always able, when I was going through the Rolodex and like, well, how do I do this? My dad used to get up in the morning and travel all the way 45 minutes to an hour to go to work on a bus. My dad always had food at our house in the refrigerator. My dad never had residue of weed smoke everywhere. He had occasional wine. My dad didn't smoke cigarettes. My dad showed me without showing me how to be a man. And that part I will always be thankful, because the foundation he set the bar. There was other things that he lacked, but I will appreciate and value that. These kids, bro, don't have a majority of that.
That's what I was saying is that I think that that's an extremely powerful point to address, because I think that that's the big tie-in to a lot of these stories. Like, there's tragedy that happens everywhere. Like that like I said, you can be wrong place, wrong time. You can be doing all the right things and all the wrong things happen to you. But when it comes to like moving forward, or when you're talking to your kids, the foundation that you lay to begin with is going to dictate their awareness, their resilience and resolve. They're able to react, like how they move and operate, even when bad things happen, how they can move forward and persevere. Like, I don't think that it's realistic to say that in this age, we talked about at the beginning, the information age, where you can get anything about, like I said, you can learn anything. You won't learn everything, but you can learn anything at your fingertips. And that it's important that we give that foundation to these kids, and that we give the opportunity for them to see all the things that are, that they have a blueprint and a foundation of how to operate and how to move. So if you're worried or concerned about what do I say to my kids, that the framework and the blueprint and the foundation that you create will do way more than what you can just sit down and talk to them about.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree with that. I think that we just have to step up, be better real models, as I say, not role models, and live in our truth and show our youth better than what we're showing them now.
All right.
I mean, that's just real talk. But but moving away from that, I have to ask you.
Okay.
Because it's been on my mind, and I put it on my Facebook, and people chimed in. As I highly respect you.
Okay.
So I want to get your opinion. Does it seem right for our mayor to give an artist that probably is doing a few different things in the city, this artist is Chance the Rapper, the key to the city, the key to Sacramento, as if he's been doing work in the community? Do you think that's like a chance to get at a celebrity that's kind of in the hip, or that was just a blatant lack of just competence.
Okay, so Chance the Rapper, Chicago.
Yes, sir.
Chi-Town. He just got the key to the city. I would say that, so sticking with what we're talking about, that when we talk about laying a foundation and of doing the right thing and how to respond and react to stuff, I think that is a bad message in the sense of you're rewarding somebody and acknowledging. And if he was getting, I don't even know if he's even been here before. So if you're giving somebody the key to the city because of what they've done for your city by way of maybe all the revenue generated from them being here.
No.
You know what I mean? If you're giving them the key because they're donating the proceeds from their concert to the local whatever.
Yeah.
Yes. But if you're just saying because a famous person passes through your area code,
here's the key to the city,
that you should be rewarded. Thank you for blessing us with your presence, for being here. So I'm going to give you a coveted award that represents the city. That I don't think is a good look, not only to the people who are actually doing something, like the snub to the people that are actually really putting in the man hours, really putting boots to the ground, really trying. And I don't think it's a solid message in the sense of all I have to do is be famous, but not actually put in the work, and I can be rewarded on the same level or greater than the people that do work. So I disagree with that. I don't know what the basis of it was. There was nothing. It was just. I'm just saying I don't know.
I think it was just a play of being what is it? Being a groupie. We have a groupie-ish mayor. I've met the mayor before he was the mayor, and we had our little back and forth about different things because I asked him about what are you going to do to help the black economics, and he didn't know how to answer that. But I just think for those people who think, like, why does it matter? Why does it matter is because if our mayor, our leadership, if we have these people moving and they don't have the pulse of the city, pulse of the people, and they think that that's okay to do that, what else are they going to think what is okay with? What else are they going to believe it's okay for me to do that? Like, these are the kind of things that just creates more of a mess, a la those two cops getting a medal for killing a black man who was mentally ill. Yeah,
the mentally disabled, bipolar, mentally ill, homeless man.
They got a medal of heroism saying that they were protecting their guy. Come on, man.
I think that all these different things that go on, like I said, the blueprint and the foundation for how anything is built the proof's gonna be in the pudding. It's gonna come out in the wash. And you talk about, we went all the way from the beginning. If you're dealing with a system that's rooted in shadiness, then you can't be surprised that shadiness is the fruit that tree bears.
There you go.
And if you're having a foundation of inconsistency, if you have a foundation of unjust behavior, if you have a foundation of just not being on the up and up, doing what's best, or just a good representation, that's what's going to happen. So when we talk about what we're going to say in the community, what we're going to say to kids, like, we need to make sure that we're about something as well as saying something.
Say something, say something, say something.
I'm Jermaine Morris, bringing you this new episode of the Say Something podcast with the one and only Mr. Barry Accius.
I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be a black man still alive in America.
Where can folks find this black man still alive in America, social media-wise?
Well, still alive on social media, Facebook, Barry Accius, BerryAccius. Shouts out to all the people that are now my new friends. Let's keep that going. And, of course, at Instagram, at Team Boy, and Twitter, same thing, Barry Accius. And make sure www.blackblueprints.com. I'm messing up on my words.
It's all right, man. I'm Jermaine Morris on Facebook, every other social media platform, Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff is at JMorrisCEO. And we good? Anything else we want to throw there?
Listen, that was the dumbest thing to give a key to a rapper, and that was even more dumber to go give a medal to some officers that killed someone, though they did not get convicted of the crime. Listen, feel the pulse of the people. The families are still grieving. People are still frustrated. They believe that this was an act of terrorism. And guess what? You guys just gave some officers a medal as if they were the kings of kings, like they were protecting the community. They weren't protecting the community, and that was dumb, dumb, dumb. Who are these damn leaders that we have in our community or in our city that's making these or signing off on this shit?
Because it's so important to not only think about it or to just observe it, but you do need to say something.
Say something.
So I'm Jermaine Morris here with the one and only Mr. Barry Accius.
Yes, sir.
And we'll holler at you later.